Here, the epicenter now of the virus, at least according to the official numbers, 85,000 confirmed cases here. Americans are under stay-at-home warnings through large swaths of the nation, but there does seem to be some light at the end of this tunnel. The Washington Post is now reporting that the suburban hospital that handled the first onslaught of coronavirus patients here in the U.S. is now offering cautious optimism. This is in Washington State. They believe they might have flattened out the curve there on the West Coast. And for more on this, let's welcome in Dr. John Baugh. Dr. Baugh is an emergency medicine physician and the co-founder of Remote Health Solutions. Dr. Baugh, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
So, obviously different stories in different parts of the world, kind of like the real estate market, right? But when we think about the virus and how we're doing as a nation tackling the problem, what letter grade would you give us?
Well, that's tough. I think that as far as tackling the problem, I'd say we're probably at a B. That's the truth, because it's really tough to be able to identify what is the right answer. Is a strict quarantine the answer, as talked about with your last guest, or is no quarantine the answer? If we look at the case up with the Evergreen in Washington, and the change, the slowing of the progression of the disease there. What was the key? What was the answer? Well, definitely some of the restrictions that are in place are helping to flatten that curve, whereas some of the quarantining in New York might have been a problem. It's tough to be able to know, and like you said, different regions, different answers are better. I think we're getting a B. I don't think we're getting an A because we're still progressing rapidly throughout the country.
What about as patients? I want to talk about this Waffle House employee who tested positive in Georgia. He's gone on kind of a media tour. He's a 30-year-old line cook. He was the first person in Georgia to be quarantined. He had tubes in his lungs, and he has since lost both of his part-time jobs. But even though he was in the hospital, he thinks America is overreacting. Take a listen.
I'm making $0 for the foreseeable future. The only way I'm having money is when the economic stimulus checks start coming in. This level of shutting down bars does not make sense to me. It doesn't. It seems like an overreaction.
How do you fight this as a doctor when you have a recovered patient out there saying it's not that bad and they're overreacting?
Well, I talk about numbers. I always say that more data is better. So if we say that the country is overreacting, then what we do is we look at the transmission rate 3 times greater than most viruses, and we look at the mortality rate. In Italy, it's still about 10%. In America, it's 1.5%. In around the world, it's 4.5%. So the things that we are doing are helping for sure. It's reducing our mortality rate. But that mortality rate of this virus is very, since it's greater than most viruses we deal with, greater than the influenza for sure.
Considering what we learned about those Chinese tests and the fact that they didn't apparently work very well in Spain and in the Czech Republic, is it possible that we are not, maybe the worst place in the world and that these other countries could still be doing worse than us? They just haven't had the effective test to prove that?
Yeah, I think that's probably a real reality, that the under testing or the under confirmation around the world may be some of that. It's hard to think that there's absolutely no new confirmed cases in some of these areas like they're being reported.
All right, Dr. Baugh, thank you so much for your time. Stay safe. I know you're working on this like everybody else. You have infected patients there at your hospital. We're thinking about you and everybody else out there working on this.
Thanks, John. Appreciate your time.
All right, meantime, the sheriff